The Mecklenburg County election debates are a service of WTVI, Mecklenburg County, and the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The views and opinions expressed in these debates are those of the candidates and do not necessarily represent the views of WTVI, its management, Mecklenburg County, or the League of Women Voters.
Hello, I'm Heather Walliga of News 14 Carolina. In the next 15 minutes, we'll speak with each of the two Democratic candidates running for the North Carolina State Senate District 38 seat. All of these questions come from the League of Women Voters, and the candidates have not heard them in advance. Now, each of the men will have 60 seconds to answer each of the questions. They'll have two 30-second challenges, and if they wish, they can challenge another candidate's response. They'll have a yellow card in front of them, which they can hold up if they would wish to do so. Let's go ahead and introduce our candidates. Mr. Joel Ford here to my right. Mr. Ford, thanks for being here. And Mr. Jamison Lawson sitting here to my left. Mr. Lawson, thanks for being here as well. And Mr. Ford, we'll go ahead and start with you. What makes you the best candidate for this position?
Well, I believe that my service to this community over the last 10 years more than qualifies me to be the best candidate for the State Senate District 38 right here in the city of Charlotte. If you take a look at the work that I've done on the Charlotte Housing Authority, Stratford Richardson YMCA, the Council for Children's Rights, I've dealt with a lot of tough issues in this community that more than qualifies me to be the best candidate for the State Senate.
All right, Mr. Lawson, I'll ask you the same question as well. What makes you the best candidate for
Absolutely.
this position?
Heather, thank you for giving us this opportunity. Growing up, my parents have had a small business. Coming out of college, I started my own small business. And throughout the years, I've learned how to work with and for people. And I think that knowledge, given all the aptitudes that I've learned, I think that gives me the ability to lead this state and lead this district.
Mr. Lawson, if you're elected, what would you do to support education in this state and to increase graduation rates, if anything?
Well, I think, first of all, I think our education system is broken. What they've done with the Republicans with the letting the penny sales tax fail or expire, I think that immediately damaged our education system. Teachers have lost jobs, families were hurt, and I think first we need to bring back the funding for our education system, allow the students to feel valued, and once you feel valued, I think that will automatically bring a rise in our graduation rates.
Mr. Ford, the same question to you. If you were elected, what would you do to support education in this state and increase the graduation rates?
Being an entrepreneur, throwing money at it is not the first thing that I would want to do. One of the first things I think we need to look at, which is to deregulate the public school system. We need to get politicians out of public education and allow the superintendents and the administrators and the teachers to teach. We need to properly provide them with the resources and the flexibility. More importantly, I believe that we need to give the public schools the same flexibilities that we give the charters to educate our kids in our community. This one-size-fits-all is not a solution for our community.
Mr. Ford, do you think tax reforms are needed here in North Carolina? And if so, would you support it and why?
Tax reform is absolutely needed in the state of North Carolina. I have been advocating for quite some time that we need to reduce the corporate rate, we need to close the loopholes, and we also need to look to expand the base. And that's one of the things that we have not done. We have an outdated 100-plus-year-old tax code system where we need to reform. It's very unfortunate that we have businesses in this state that pay zero corporate tax. However, I do believe that we have everything we need in our state to be the best state that we can be.
Mr. Lawson, I'll ask you the same question.
Well, I think I would support tax reform, obviously, but I think that we, in addition to businesses and lowering the corporate rate, I believe we need to institute a higher state earned income tax credit. Right now, our middle class and working poor are receiving 5% earned income tax credit based on their federal earned income tax credit. I think we need to raise that to 10%. I think we need to put money back into the hands first of our working poor. And then once we do that, I think we should start reforming the way smaller businesses pay taxes. Your businesses that are 10 and 20 employees, let's help them grow. And I think once we do that, I think that we'll reap the benefits.
Mr. Lawson, do you believe that we need the voter identification law requiring voters to show identification when voting?
Absolutely not. I think that that's an easy question. There's well over 400,000 people here, registered voters. that do not have an ID right now. And I think that if we institute that, not only will we disenfranchise those people, you'll disenfranchise people that may have left their wallets, may have left their IDs, may have just recently lost their IDs. They won't have the opportunity to vote, and so that's a law that we don't need to pass.
Mr. Ford, your view on the voter identification law?
I think you'd find a better chance of finding someone who's been struck by lightning than have committed voter fraud in the state of North Carolina. That is not an issue that is before this state. I think that the new leadership that came in promised that they would talk about the economy and deal with jobs. They have done everything other than that. The central core issues in this state are not voter ID or voter fraud. They are the economy and education, and we need to make sure that we send folks to Raleigh that who are going to focus on the core issues in the state of North Carolina. Again, I think when you talk about a voter ID bill, you're talking about impacting our seniors who may or may not have ID and our young people. So again, we need to focus on the core issues in dealing with this particular state, and that is the economy and education.
Mr. Ford, the state requires revaluation every 8 years, as you know. Do you believe that it should be done more frequently, and should the process be improved? If so, how?
I think we need to empower our local communities to help make those kind of decisions. One of the things I think there's a huge disconnect in terms of the General Assembly in Raleigh and what goes on here in the local community. We have to work hand in hand and make sure that the local communities are empowered to make those kind of decisions.
Mr. Lawson, the same question.
Actually, I think Joe's spot on with that. I think the local communities do need to be empowered to be able to make those decisions.
Okay. Moving on to the next question, Mr. Lawson, in 2011, the legislature passed a law that requires abortion providers to show women an ultrasound and describe those images, even when the woman and the provider object. This is currently being challenged in court as unconstitutional. So what is your position on this issue?
I think that the people that are challenging it are spot on. I think that when you cause women to have to and put these things in front of them before they're able to make a decision that's truly between them and their doctor, and the health of a woman, I think that you're doing a disservice to them, and I think that it will be overturned.
Mr. Ford?
You know, this is one of those very sensitive issues in our community, and as a father and as a husband, I believe in a woman's right to choose. Personally, I am pro-life. But when it comes to those intimate issues, I think that women are more than capable of making those decisions on their own. And any time that we get politicians involved in helping making personal decisions for women, to me, that's when they've overstepped their boundaries, and that's tough for me to deal with because, again, being a father and a husband, I have the full trust and confidence that women can make those kind of personal decisions. The North Carolina General Assembly missed it on this particular piece of legislation when they did not focus on the economy and when they did not focus on education.
And Mr. Ford, if you are elected, what forms of transportation would you support and how would you pay for it?
Well, one of the things I think we need to do as it relates to transportation is to make sure that we have the proper infrastructure in place to support the travelings of goods and services as well as our passengers in our state. Mecklenburg County is in desperate need of road repair as well as expanding the road base here in the city of Charlotte. We are a hub of activity for commerce, and the state needs to help us recognize that by making sure that we have the proper resources to make sure that we have the proper infrastructure and transportation to continue to keep the heartbeat of the city of Charlotte going, which ultimately helps out this entire state.
Mr. Lawson, the same question.
Heather, I'm not versed on that. I'd like to go to the next question.
Okay, sure. Do you support economic development incentives to encourage businesses to move here to North Carolina? How would you address cries from businesses already located here that claim the incentives are unfair?
Well, I think that, we have to improve our unemployment rate. We're at 10%, and particularly in the African-American community, we're at 20%. And I think that we have to do have a comprehensive approach to bringing jobs here. Now, obviously, the companies that are here already that say, well, you bring in a company and you're either going to allow them to not pay taxes for a few years, or they're going to be given money. It seems unfair. But what's unfair is when you have people out of work. We have a speaker that says that they want to cut off Medicaid for the people that are out of work and they can't get a job. There's a lot of issues that we have to solve. So if we have to go through a time where we give them incentives that are better than the people that are already here, the employees that are already here, we just have to do it.
All right, Mr. Ford, your take on this issue.
I think incentives are important, and as long as we have our neighbors to the north and to the south who are offering those incentives, in order for the state of North Carolina to remain competitive, we're going to have to keep that on the table. That is not my first option to provide incentives. I think that we have a wonderful state. Again, I think if we can reform our tax code and continue to provide the strong, healthy infrastructure and a positive education, most corporations will want to move to this wonderful state. But at the end of the day, we have neighbors who are offering and putting cash on the table. I think in putting those incentives on the table, we must make sure that we protect the investments from the taxpayers in the state of North Carolina and make sure that those corporations are going to do what they said they're going to do by way of employment and as well as giving back to this great state in which we all live in.
All right, please give a very short response to the next question, Mr. Ford. What one area would you never cut funding for, if any?
Education. Education is the central key for me. I think it's the central solution for short-term and long-term economic issues in our state, and education should be properly funded and resourced and staffed so that we can ensure that our next generation has options for employment and future growth and development.
Mr. Lawson, your answer?
I think Joe's spot on. Education. We need to return, we cut over $400 million in education last year. We need to return that money. Without education, our children being educated, our community schools being funded, employers may not want to come here. Having a great community school system and public school system brings more employers here. So that's something we can't afford to cut.
All right, we now want to give both of you time to give a 30-second closing statement, and Mr. Lawson, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Heather. In closing, I believe that this state needs a leader, and it needs someone that's willing to fight for its district and the state. We've seen in the last 2 years, when the Republicans came into office, that they've decided to work on social issues. This Amendment 1, parenthood, defunding parenthood, Planned Parenthood. We need to get back to creating jobs. We need to get back to our children, and we need to get back to making North Carolina better. Thank you.
Mr. Ford, your 30-second closing statement.
First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and WTVI for hosting this debate. I'm Joel Ford, and I'm a candidate for State Senate District 38. I would like to have your support. You can go to votejoelford.com and learn more about me and my platform. I think that this is a wonderful state. We need to have elected officials who are going to be good stewards of the taxpayers' resources and to ensure that the greatness is maintained with the resources that we have here in the state of North Carolina.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ford and Mr. Lawson, for both being here today, Democratic candidates for North Carolina State Senate District 38. And don't forget to vote on Tuesday, May 8th. For more information on the candidates and the issues, go to WTVI.org/debates.